What's up, everyone? Today I want to talk about version 2.0 for my file scrubber node for Houdini. So the version 2.0 introduces a completely new way to import geometry inside Houdini, and that is usage of viewport visualization and also different places to search geometry in, and also we use the Houdini wildcards to generally search for geometry that matches the wildcards that we want to, basically our own wildcards. So the idea is that we can search different types of geometry and then combine it as an output for this node. Or if you want to just see what kind of geometry you have here, in this case I have searched for the tables, chairs, and boxes. You can see I have toggled these on, so I'm searching it inside the same directory. And let's say I'm seeing this visually geometry that I have of these tables. And let's say I only want to pass along only this one. I have also made a custom Python URState where you can just enter these nodes Python URState. And let's say I want to pass only this table. You just go ahead and select it, and it's going to automatically populate this output group parameter. You can see if I go ahead and select it, different geometry, you can see it starts to fill this group. And then I can say, okay, I want these three tables, and that's basically it. I have selected it. And if you go to the output, I am only passing along only these three geometry pieces. So this is a very quick demonstration of the main feature of the version 2.0, added features of the version 2.0. But before I go into detail how to work with it, I want to show you the kind of a thing that has been changed for the original mode, which is now under the single mode. So now the node, when you get this node, you're going to have two modes, a single and a file pattern. So the single is the version 1.0 version of the node, which basically works the same way. We can just go ahead and start scrubbing through the geometry on disk. And one thing to note that things that has been updated also for this version is that now we have our visualization. And if you do not want to show it, you can hide it inside here. You can change the color, but this is just a visualization because after all, when you pass it downwards, this is just a kind of viewport just for as a visual aid. After that, the names or anything is not going to be visible because it's underneath. It's basically just a file node where we import the geometry inside here, and this is basically the output of the file nodes. So we do not add any new attributes if we do not want, and it's just a basic file node. After all, all of this is just a visual aid for you to see the name of the geometry and all of that. I have also added a couple of things. You can actually open up the search directory now in both modes. You can see now I'm searching these inside the geo directory. And if you go ahead and press on this menu, you can see I have opened up this directory. And also that is available for the pattern node. So the format is open. So only these formats are going to be searched for. And you can also combine different formats. But be careful because a lot of the time the FBX formats are actually not at the same scale as BGOs or anything else. So you have to be a little bit careful when you import, if you want to import, basically search for the different two types of different geometry extensions. So usually it's best to make sure that these are all the scaling is the same. But that's kind of a rare occurrence, to be honest. What else? So we have ability to output attributes. So by default, we do not add any new attributes that the file node would not add anyway. So the only attribute that file node likes to add is if we output packed disk primitive, it outputs a path attribute that is basically the place directory path location on disk of this geometry that you import. So that is also going to be output if you go ahead and select pack disk primitive. And if you go ahead and you can see the path attribute is going to be here. But we can kind of separate this path attribute for any one of these import types. I have basically went ahead and removed a couple of attributes, couple of import types that didn't work very well with this node. So we have the old geometry, bounding box, packed disk primitive, and packed geometry. And by default, the best way to work with this node, if you want to import and visualize a large set of geometry data, the best idea is to use a packed disk primitive, because then we do not load this geometry in memory. So for the hundreds of geometry visualization, it definitely you have to select the packed disk primitive. The idea is that these output attributes can be optionally added to the output geometry. And what you can do is just go ahead and I'm going to enable them and take a look at them. We basically can we can extract attributes from the location of this mesh inside basically on disk. You can see I have path, I have file name, file path, file name, and extension. We have basically taken the path attribute and separated into its own individual parts of this relevant geometry. And this is also available for all of the geometry or for single or for the pattern node. And we also have ability to unexpand path attribute. So this idea is that we can put back if we have found, and we also have ability to unexpand path attribute. So the idea is that since we can use the environment variables for the search directories for our geometry, what we can do is try to put back our environment variable into the output attribute. So this has to be used with caution, because sometimes there could be because the underlying logic that I'm using to unexpand this path attribute can maybe misinterpret some of the placement of these environment variables. So I'm not guaranteeing that it's always going to work 100%, but for the simple environment variables, it should work just fine by placing the original environment variables inside these path attributes. And now let's talk about the file pattern mode in little more detail. So first of all, you can use multiple patterns to basically import with a single node. You can import multiple patterns. You can use multiple patterns to import your geometry inside Houdini. In this case, and with these toggles, you can enable and disable these imports. In this case, let's say I want my tables and I also want my chairs. If you toggle them, you can see we can go ahead and search for any a geometry file that their name is table or chair. And if you're familiar with the Houdini wildcard, you know that asterisk means that we can basically, between the word table inside the file name can be any character. In this case, you can see anything that starts with the table has been found, and also with the chair. And think to know that if you know your Houdini wildcards in more detail, you can definitely kind of narrow any search for any geometry inside any directories. But in this case, I'm saying just give me all the tables and all the chairs inside directories. And another thing that you can use is use a recursive search. In this case, I'm using the recursive by default for both of these. Let's say I disable the recursive for the table. And you can see, let me disable this one. And you can see I have also this helper description for how many geometry has been loaded. You can see in this case I have by turning off this recursive, I have lost one geometry file. That is because inside this geometry I am searching in this Cosmos assets directory, and I have also a subdirectory in it, and there must be one table geometry. You can see this table geometry has not been found because we have turned off this recursive option for the node. But if you turn it on, we have now recursively search for all the tables also in subdirectories of the search of the main search directory. So let's go ahead and turn on a couple more geometries. So let's say I have these. Let's go ahead and enter the viewport, and let's select maybe these three tables and maybe this chair. Just go ahead and select your geometry. and the output group is set inside here. So you can also set it manually for the output, and just go ahead and for the output. You can see we have these 4 geometry files, and by default these are going to be packed disk primitives, but you can also import entire geometry. So let me to not use that much memory. Let me go ahead and only import these tables. Let's say all geometry. So in this case, it's not too heavy, so it's going to import just fine. We won't have to wait too long. And the selection has been found, but you see in this case, we have a full geometry with all the attributes imported. But usually you just want to go ahead and to make sure that your geometry, this node works fast. Make sure that it's packed these primitives. Go ahead and select it, and you can just unpack your geometry later on anyway. So that's not really a big deal. But this is going to be, especially if you visualize a lot of geometry, the best idea is to use a packed disk primitive. In this case, let me show you let's go ahead and search for all the geometry inside the subsections folder, which is basically around the 200 files. The 200 files is going to be pretty snappy. I have opened up to maybe like 500 files. When you are past a couple hundred, it's going to be a little bit little slower. So just be careful. And by default, it's going to be all the geometry is going to be sorted by the size of its bounding box. You can see in this case I'm importing a bunch of geometry, and all of it is basically we look at the bounding box of each geometry, and we are being sorted by that. The smallest geometry is going to be right at the end, or it's going to also be by default. It's always going to be sorted in the groups. You can see the group 1 has been sorted by size, and then the next found pattern has been sorted, and then the rest of it. And also there could be a scenario when multiple patterns match the same geometry. In this case, the first matched from the multi-parameter, basically whatever the first pattern index that starts from the top has matched this geometry. That is where it's going to be grouped into the as a visualization help. So that means if the chair pattern has found any tables also, that means that the table is still going to be visualized as a red, because the red has found it, because the red is at index 0 and this is at the 1 and 2. So it won't override where it has been visualized, in which group it has been placed as a visualization aid. So that's kind of I hope that makes sense. Another cool thing that you can do is actually open up directory where we are searching our geometry in. So this is where this comes in handy. Basically, since we can provide multiple search directories, in this case all of them are the same, but what you can do is go ahead and say open search directory, and we have to specify which multi-parameter you want to open. Let's go ahead and say, let me open up the multi-parameter 0 index, which is this one, the search directory. Just press on it. You can see it has found basically the common assets directory and opened up inside the file explorer. Let's close up, and let's say this is my subsection directory that I'm searching geometry in. So let's say you go ahead and open up 0, 1, 2, 3. Set this to the 3 and say open search directory. You see it has found the subsection. It has opened up subsection directory. And another cool thing that you can go ahead and go inside the viewer state, and as long as you have selected one geometry file, you can press A, and there's also a helper for you. Press A, and it's going to open up this directory where this geometry file is located. So that's really cool. Basically, I know that in this case, all of these are in the subdirectory, except basically the table matches, except for this broken, the first one is not, it's actually in the subsection directory. And if you go ahead and press on it, you can see it has been opened up subsection. And let's open up this one. and this is the Cosmos asset. So that's kind of a cool thing to have. You can, and this is only going to work if the single file has been opened up. Basically, the only single geometry file has been opened up. If you have more than one selected, it's not going to do anything. The hotkey is not going to do anything. So always read up the help string underneath the viewer state to know exactly what kind of hotkeys are available for you. So you can also disable the individual colorization for the different matches by pressing the uniform color. So yeah, this file name is going to be also, you can also change the spacing between geometry files, but which I hasn't really found to be all that necessary. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this node. Let me go ahead and select maybe these two. Actually, let me go ahead and select only one table. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the version 2.0. I really hope you find this node really helpful. You can go ahead and download it from the links in the description, and see you next time.